She took $44 million. Every single cent our father left behind. Then she called the moving company herself, had my locks changed, left my things in garbage bags on the driveway. My own sister. The woman I shared a bedroom with for 15 years. And here's the part that still shocks me every single time I tell this story. She thought she got away with it. She thought it was over. She was wrong. Let me take you back to the beginning. Because this story doesn't start with greed. It starts with a father who loved two daughters very differently. His name was Gerald, retired real estate developer. Self-made. Absolutely ruthless in business, but soft at home. Too soft, as it turned out. He had two daughters, Renee, the oldest, sharp, calculating, and always her daddy's business partner. She worked alongside him for 20 years. She knew every property, every deal, every dollar. And then there was Mara. That's our storyteller today. Mara was the younger one, the artist. The one who moved to another city to pursue graphic design, who called every Sunday, who visited every holiday. She wasn't in the business, but she was in her father's heart. Gerald got sick in his late 60s. Dementia. The slow, cruel kind. And who moved back home to care for him? Mara. She gave up her apartment, her clients, her life. For 3 years, she bathed him, fed him, drove him to appointments. She held his hand when he forgot her name. Renee? She visited maybe 6 times a year. She was too busy running the business, she said. When Gerald passed, everyone assumed the will was straightforward. It wasn't. The reading of the will happened on a Tuesday. Mara sat in the lawyer's office, still wearing black from the funeral. She wasn't nervous. Why would she be? She'd been the one there. She was the caretaker. She was the one who sacrificed everything. The lawyer cleared his throat. He read, and Mara's entire world collapsed in about 45 seconds. The house, Renee. The investment portfolio, Renee. The commercial properties, Renee. Everything. Every asset. Every account. $44 million. All of it. To the firstborn daughter. Mara received a single lump sum, $50,000. She couldn't breathe. The lawyer kept talking, but she heard none of it. Later, Mara would find out the will had been updated, 18 months before Gerald died. Right around the time Renee started joining him at his doctor's appointments. Right around the time she started helping manage his affairs. Think about that timing. Mara was the one wiping his tears at night. And Renee was the one quietly getting herself written into everything. But wait. It gets worse. The house Mara had been living in for 3 years while she cared for Gerald? That house belonged to Renee now. And Renee wanted her out. Fast. Mara called her sister the same night. Renee answered on the 3rd ring. Mara begged for time. She had no apartment. She had no income. She had nothing. Renee gave her 2 weeks. 2 weeks, after 3 years of caregiving, after everything she gave up. Her sister gave her 14 days. On day 15, Mara came home to new locks. Her clothes were in 3 garbage bags on the front step. Renee never even came to the door. Mara spent the next 6 months at a friend's place. $50,000. That was everything. She was devastated. She was broken. She was barely functioning. But then, she started digging. See, Mara had spent 3 years inside that house. She knew her father's habits. She knew where he kept things. And before she left, she grabbed 1 box of his personal documents. Just 1 box. Inside that box, she found something. A letter. Handwritten. Dated 4 months before the will was changed. It was from Gerald to his longtime estate attorney, not the one Renee had recently suggested he switch to. His original attorney. The letter described his true wishes. He wanted to split everything equally. He wanted both daughters provided for. He wrote about Mara specifically. He wrote, "She has given me her life. She must be protected." He had intended to update his will. But he never made it to that appointment. Because Renee had convinced him to switch attorneys first. Mara sat on her friend's couch and read that letter 4 times. Then, she called a lawyer. The legal challenge took 14 months. It wasn't fast, it wasn't easy, it cost Mara almost everything she had. But she had that letter. And she had 3 years of medical records showing her father's cognitive decline during the period the will was changed. And she had something else. She had the original attorney, Gerald's real attorney, who had kept notes from that final meeting with Gerald. Notes that showed Gerald had been confused, notes that described him asking the same question 4 times in 20 minutes. The case was building. Renee hired the best lawyers money could buy. She wasn't worried, at first. Then Mara's attorney filed for the financial records of Gerald's final 18 months, and that's when Renee made her huge mistake. She tried to have documents destroyed. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't clever. She panicked. She contacted Gerald's new attorney, the one she'd arranged, and asked him to clean up the files. He refused. Then he reported it to the court. That single act turned a civil dispute into a fraud investigation. Now let me give you the confrontation scene you came for. 2 sisters. 1 conference room. The mediation session that Renee demanded before the case went to trial. Mara walked in calm. She had already won. She just didn't know it yet. Renee opened with a speech about how she had built the business, about how she had earned this inheritance, about how Mara had chosen to leave the family business. Mara let her finish. Then she opened her folder. She slid the handwritten letter across the table. She watched her sister read it. Renee's face went completely still. Then Mara said, "And I want you to hear this," she said. "He asked to be protected from the people who would use his confusion against him. That was you." Renee had no answer. She looked to her lawyers. They wouldn't meet her eyes. The mediation ended an hour later. 3 weeks after that, the case settled. Mara received half of everything, $22 million. The house. Her share of the properties. And Renee, she kept her half. But her reputation? Her relationship with her family? Her standing among her father's business partners who all found out what happened? Gone. So now it's your turn. Because this story is not simple. Let me give you both sides. The case for Mara. She gave up 3 years of her life. She provided around-the-clock care for a dying parent while her sister stayed away. Her father's handwritten letter proves his true intentions. The will change happened during a period of documented cognitive decline. Renee did not just inherit more, she actively manipulated the process. And when exposed, she tried to destroy evidence. That is not gray. That is fraud. The case for Renee, or at least her defenders, she worked in that business for 20 years. She arguably built significant portions of that wealth. Caregiving, as painful and selfless as it is, does not automatically mean legal entitlement to an estate. People change their wills. People have the right to leave money as they choose, even when others disagree. Without the letter, this is a family dispute, not a crime. And here's the question I want you to sit with. If that letter had never been found, if Mara had never grabbed that box, would we be calling this injustice? Or would we have just accepted that sometimes life is unfair? Does justice only happen when there's paperwork? And then there's a bigger question. When did Renee stop being a daughter and start being a predator? Was it when she moved to control the attorney? Was it the day the will changed? Or was it something quiet and slow, a gradual slide that she never even noticed in herself? That one keeps me up at night. That's the story of Mara, Renee, and the $44 million betrayal. And now I need your verdict. Drop it in the comments right now. Was Renee just protecting her business legacy? Or was this calculated, cold-blooded theft from her own family? Was Mara right to pursue legal action? Or should she have walked away? And what about the father? Was he a victim too? Or did his years of treating Renee as the business daughter create this monster? Comment your verdict below. I read every single one. If this story hit different, and I think it did, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach people who love real stories like this one. And if you're new here, welcome to Confession Verdict, where real people, real betrayals, and real consequences get the judgment they deserve. Subscribe. Because next week's story? Someone found out their spouse had a second family for 11 years. And the way they found out will break your heart. See you then.